Hello, everybody. So, two disclaimers before we go any further. As you heard, I am registered blind. I'm not reading from anything. My eyes are just going to go for a little walk. So, just disclaimer, I'm not looking around for help. And the second disclaimer is I have ADHD. So, I probably am going to take you into rabbit holes, or you're probably going to see these fling up and hit me in the face. These are my fidget toys, fidget spins. I don't know what I'm calling them. Disclaimer. So for me, I'm going to talk from a user experience because I am not trained in accessibility. I just know what I need when I go online. So the internet is the very thing that's meant to connect us, right? Majority of the people within the UK, within the US, we all have access to the internet. Now, the problem is the very thing that's meant to connect us is the thing that creates the most barriers for me. When we think about accessibility, people tend to think it's all to do with buildings, it's all to do with getting letters in the post you can't read. They think it's all to do with physical things, but they don't think that the very thing which is meant to connect us is the biggest barrier. So when I go onto a website, 97% of the world's top websites aren't accessible. And that is a study that has been done time and time again, and things aren't improving fast enough. Companies aren't prioritizing accessibility. They don't see it as a need. There's no business case for it. What do we get out of this? And that's the way businesses have looked at it for years. And when you go onto any business's website, the thing that I need most is contrast and font size. I need to be able to zoom in on that. I need to be able to use my screen reader if I can't zoom in on that. But if I have a barrier and I am using the solutions, my screen reader to fix that barrier, but I'm encountering another barrier, what do? I'm going to leave that website the same as 67% of disabled people who will leave your website because it's inaccessible. For years, I wasn't confident being disabled. I didn't like having a disability. I used to be so opposed to disclosing it. So when I used to go online and I was struggling, I didn't ask for help. I would just leave that website and go on to somewhere else. It didn't matter if I spent an extra 30, 40 quid on this item or whatever it was I was doing. I would do it because I didn't want to have to ask for help and I didn't want to use this inaccessible website. I work in recruitment, and the way that I now think about accessibility online is we talk about the disability employment gap, but we aren't making websites accessible. We aren't making applications online accessible. In fact, marketing by businesses online isn't accessible. So how are we meant to bridge this gap? How are we meant to, and I'm doing this in inverted commas, attract those with the diverse difference, so those who are disabled or neurodivergent? How do we attract them when there's no entry point that's accessible into that business? So for me, when I'm on a website, alt text is a little bit of text that describes an image. Only 26% of websites have alt text on them. The rest are missing alt text, which is scary. That bit of text will describe what that image is to somebody using a screen reader. And for anyone who doesn't know, a screen reader is a piece of assistive technology which supports those who are blind, who are neurodivergent. A whole range of people can use a screen reader, even those who are non-disabled. So you'll find that content writers sometimes use it, sometimes accountants. Lots of people can take advantage of a screen reader. But when you go online, it's not able to tell you what an image is. So it's a blank canvas. It makes no sense. So as well as that, when you're online as well, when you're somebody who is using a screen reader, typically you're going to tab to get through the website, right? If I'm using my mouse, I can't see that. It's like, where's Wally? Only it's the mouse. So instead, what I do is I rely on tabbing on my keyboard. But if I'm tabbing on my keyboard and it takes me 67 tabs to get to an accessibility menu, which is an overlay most websites have, I call them band-aids. It's like when you go onto a website, it has a little accessibility symbol. It's like a stick person inside a circle. That's the accessibility symbol. And usually that's an additional step somebody has to take to turn on accessibility. That's a band-aid. If we're having to create an extra step for somebody to remove a barrier by creating another barrier, that's not accessible, it's not inclusive, and it's complete hypocrisy to me, so it is. So when I'm having to tab 67 times to get to this button, to then tab again to find the setting that I need, that's not a great user experience. I switched off half an hour ago when my tabbing was not going where I needed. So for me, a user experience will be something that is accessible, and I'm going to let the specialist speak after me because I'm not going to talk too much on that. But for me, I want to go onto a website and I want to know that I have confidence in using that, particularly if it's a recruitment company or somewhere I'm applying for a job. Why would I want to ask somebody to help me apply for a job? Is that person going to be coming to work with me every day and holding my hand as I do my job? No, they're not. They're not my PA. They're not they're not my carer. Why would I need somebody to help me get online and use a website when by law it should be accessible? UK Equality Act tells us it needs to be accessible. When you look at the US, you have the likes of the Americans with Disability Act. It protects people across there too. And in fact, we're seeing a 20% increase in lawsuits against companies who aren't accessible. So for me, I think, why can't we do this? But companies ask for quick wins. So before I wrap up, I'm going to give you some quick wins. So social media, again, online. We target people online for marketing, for jobs, for sales, for whatever you do, you're going to potentially look at online for your customer base. But when you're posting and you're not making your content accessible, you are excluding those with visual impairment, those who are blind, those with cognitive disabilities, those who are dyslexic, those with a whole range of neurodivergence. You are excluding a group of people, and 15% of the world, so that's about 1 billion people, live with disability. Why are you excluding a massive talent pool? It makes no sense. So if you're posting online and social media, whether it be individuals or business, if you're posting an image, add alt text. There will be an option to add the alt text there. Usually on LinkedIn or Twitter, there is an option to add it, embed it. So when somebody uses a screen reader, it will tell them what that image is. If you can't get it embedded, stick it in a message. Now, one thing with alt text is it's not a chance for somebody to promote their extra services or their business. It needs to be like a tweet, is the way I say it. Do it like a tweet. Describe that image like a tweet. There's so many characters. You don't want the person to switch off and say, God, this post is really boring. I've had to listen to describe every fine detail. You do not need to do that. If it's supposed to be lots of information, what's the message? What's the key takeaway? I don't need this to be really long. I just need to know what the takeaway is. As well as that there, if you're doing videos, turn on your captions, offer transcript videos if you can, if you're a business, offer transcripts, which again is every spoken word, narration, sound, anything that is important within that audio, it needs to be transcribed. As well as that, your hashtags, make them camel case or postal case. That means using a capital letter for each new word in your hashtag. That supports people with screen readers, and it also supports people, again, with cognitive disability, visual impairment, dyslexia. And if you really want to know, it looks a lot better. A few years ago, Susan Boyle had an album. I don't know if anyone knows Subo. I love Susan Boyle, so I do. So she released an album, and they did Susan's album party. Now, I'm not going to tell you what people interpreted that as, so I'll let you write it out or go look at it online. But it was interpreted in a very rude way. Not really how you want to promote your album, is it? So use camel case hashtags, use a capital letter for each new word. And then emojis, great, they set the tone of voice. But if you're using them to replace words, that's not going to transfer well all the time. So if you're using the water droplet emoji for ocean, imagine reading a story and it suddenly says, I went to the beach, there was loads of sand and water drops. You'd think, what do they mean? So use them sparingly, use them, but don't go crazy in them. You know, see it 10 emojis saying clapping hands. Listen, imagine the screen reader saying that 10 times to you. Clapping hands, clapping hands, clapping hands, clapping hands. I've lost count and I'm over it. That's the way to use the fields. So when it comes to online, from a user perspective, you have the power to make change. I post about it every week. And I think that if you're a business or organization and you're saying, we can't afford to do this, it's not part of the agenda, diversity, equity, inclusion, so DEI, I stand for inclusion. Without accessibility, you're excluding people and doing the complete opposite of what you're saying your business goals are. So that's all from me.